Welcome to Design Education Talks podcast from the New Art School. Our guest today is James Grady. Welcome, James.
Thanks for having me.
It's wonderful to have you here. So tell us about you and your work.
Sure. So my name is James Grady. I am an assistant professor of art in graphic design at Boston University. I am also the principal of Design Axl, my design consultancy. And my primary home at Boston University is within the College of Fine Arts. So I teach graphic design to undergraduate and graduate students. I also do a cross-college collaboration with the Center for Data Science. I work with the Spark program. So we do design and development on product design. So it's student innovation. Students come to us with ideas and we put together teams. And then we have designers and developers working on these teams throughout the semester to develop a product, like a functioning product. It's a MVP, minimally viable product, within a semester, but it is functioning. So we do the whole design research side of things, validation, and we do a weekend design sprint. So we get, essentially what is done over many months, done in a short amount of time, and it's really successful. So my work ranges from more highly conceptual work with my graduate students in the graphic design program and with the undergraduate students in the graphic design program, all the way to more engineering side of things. So I always talk about it on a spectrum of, highly conceptual to highly pragmatic. And I'm really excited about everything in between. So I feel like all of those things work together. And one of the reasons I love graphic design is because it is really a hub to all these different connection points. So you can be doing installation, interactive work, data visualization, machine learning. I feel like the list goes on and on between from the digital to the physical to the tactile to immersive, and that's what really gets me excited. So it's teaching graphic design, teaching product design, doing client work with my consultancy. I also do a few different research projects that we can get into, and I'm the dad of two girls that are 12 and 13 right now. So my plate is full, but it's great. I love what I do.
That's a lot to unpack there. So how did you get into teaching?
So I guess I'll sort of start back. Always have been an artist. Always actually been really interested in graphic design. My uncle was an architect, and I loved drafting and drawing houses and things like that when I was a kid. And he introduced me to graphic design. So I grew up in Rhode Island, just on the East Coast. And so I found that really interesting, like to distill something really complex down into a logo. That's, where the sort of basics came in. And I was really a big fan of like Paul Rand and Saul Bass and things like that when in the 90s, and no one knew what I was talking about or looking at. And I wound up, my undergrad experience was really transformational because I knew I really liked art, but I didn't actually realize there was such a clear pedagogy around it. So when I started my undergrad experience at UMass Dartmouth, and to see the pedagogy and the structure of how you could sort of learn art, that made me think like, this is how you can teach art. So I think right away I was interested in teaching. But I was also, again, that sort of very practical, pragmatic designer. So I knew graphic design was also an opportunity for a career. And so as soon as I got out of undergrad, I started working in Boston. I worked for 11 years at a company called Core Group for 3 amazing women. I wound up, being there a lot longer than I thought. I always thought I would be in New York. And, one thing led to another, and I wound up staying. And then after 11 years, I decided to go to grad school, and I went back to Rhode Island. So I was at Rhode Island School of Design. And one of the main reasons for going to RISD was actually to get back to technology a little bit more. I felt like in the late 90s, I was able to do the design and the development and the animation and all of these things that were like design and technical. And I didn't really see a big like space between the two. But sort of as the projects got bigger, I felt like the engineering side was like their camp and the design side was its camp. And we were sort of getting separated. So I went to RISD. At the time, John Maeda was the president of RISD, and I was really interested in how design and technology in a traditional art school operated. And that was sort of like one of my curiosities. To go back to grad school, I don't know if John Maeda had a huge impact necessarily on that, but at least it was like inspired me there. But it did turn out that I wound up meeting Ben Fry, and Ben Fry was studied with John Maeda at the Media Lab, and Ben is the co-creator of Processing with Casey Reese. And I got really fascinated with the idea of a coding language developed really for artists and designers. So I was like, okay, this was like my aha moment. Like, this is where I want to be. So I wound up interning for Ben at Fathom Information Design, working there for 5 years. And within those 5 years, I actually met Kristen Coogan, who's the chair of our department at BU, who was giving a tour of Fathom, or brought her students. I was giving the tour. Brought her students to Fathom. I showed them around, showed them work, and then I reached out to Kristen and said, oh, I'd love to know like what your story is, how you got into teaching. So we went and had coffee. And she right away was like, oh, you should teach. Like, we would love you to bring your perspective to BU. So I wound up doing just an interactive design class, which was like in the evening. And, really loved that. I said, wow, this is really how I can imagine myself. And it wasn't like, again, I wasn't determined to be a teacher at the beginning. It sort of like slowly developed itself. And so then I taught that class at BU. That was great. And then Ben got an opportunity to teach at MIT information design. So they were really building out their design program within MIT. It was in the School of Architecture at the time. And so we were co-teaching information design class, which, again, I loved. So, Ben was the lead for that class, but I was doing a lot of the structure around assignments and helping with all the students. So I did that for 3 semesters, and the BU thing sort of kept coming back to me. And then I got an opportunity to teach a full-time lecturing position at BU, and it was sort of a big risk because I wound up leaving Fathom, leaving a really good job with awesome clients, awesome work, complex work, and taking a job that was only really guaranteed for 1 year. So I took that risk, and sort of the rest is history. I've been at BU now for 7 years, and literally on the day I left Fathom and signed the paperwork for BU, I started Design Axl because I was, again, worried about what my backup plan was, and had 2 young kids. So yeah, that's kind of how I got into it, and it's been really fantastic.
That's really wonderful. That's a fantastic story. So you mentioned your projects you were working on. So tell us more about those.
Sure. So I have a few different areas of research. One of the main areas that I've been working on, again, since I started at BU, is a project called Random Actor. And I met Clay Hopper, who's in the School of Theater, at a luncheon that the dean had. And we were talking about, different projects. And Clay was talking about wanting to do an immersive play using projection and potentially motion tracking and like all these things that I had actually done a lot of work around while I was in grad school. So looking at computer vision and some motion tracking work, we wound up collaborating. He was like, is this something that you're interested in? I said, yeah, absolutely. Like, this would be great. So sort of just jumped in head first, as I do with many things, without totally thinking it through. and wound up bringing a student who I was teaching a web design class, and had an engineering student who was taking this web design class with me, who was really interested in a lot of work in this area. So her name is Ellen Lau, and her and I worked with Clay on a play, 1984, and we did, again, some motion tracking work, some really basic, it was done in processing at the time. And there was just one scene that we did in 1984 that was tracking the motion of the actors as they were sort of moving design through the air and communicating in space. And it was really interesting, but it was like a very small part of the play. So Clay and I continued to talk about, building this out to a full production. My work with Spark and the Center for Data Science allowed me to bring in more students in that area on the engineering side for a more robust development of this. And semester after, we did this for like 3 or 4 semesters where we're bringing students in. They were coming up with really great directions for what we wanted, but it was almost like they were reinventing the wheel every time. So we kind of would go back to square one, and then they would come up with something interesting at the end of the semester, but it wasn't enough to sort of like, be a bulletproof piece of software interacting with hardware in real time in a live production. So we wound up writing a grant with the Shipley Center, which is at BU, and we brought an artist in residence from Italy. His name was Paolo Scopola, and he was introduced to us from Theo Watson, who is one of the co-creators of Open Frameworks, which is similar to processing, sort of a software built on top of C++. And so he sort of connected us with Paulo, and then Paulo came over for a semester and really helped us firm up the software. And based on his work, we were able to actually, it was kind of crazy because we had him over within the semester. While we were in production, we were beginning to develop the software, all to meet the deadline of the opening date of the play at the end of the semester. So the play was called Exit the King, and the king dies at the end. Spoiler alert there, but the idea was like, how do we imbue the narrative of the play with the computer vision and not make it an add-on, but really truly part of a narrative element within the play. One of our goals was to, not have people ask us like, how did you do that, with the graphics? We just wanted them to ask us about the play. And I think that was what was really successful about it, because the cameras would track the actors moving, and then they were either rear projected, or they were projected on the floor, or they were actually projected on the actor's body themselves. So we almost could project what we were going for is this particle system that was like the soul of the actor on the body, or, there was a particle system of like flames or breath. And so it responded to sound and motion. And so as the king deteriorated, as did the graphics, and it was a really amazing experience. And so we've been working on that for a long time, and we're really excited to see where it goes. We continue to refine the software to make it as low code, no code as possible. And now we're really interested in, how can we incorporate AI potentially into it? So there's actually no interface, and it's just a real time, either, voice activated generative design where we set the parameters up around it. Or is it something that actually the audience could interact with through the script potentially? Like we could give them the script beforehand, and they could sort of come up with some inputs, and how could that sort of like manifest itself? So we're always thinking about that. And then also, what are the other applications for computer vision, in different schools? I've talked to folks in education, deaf education, public health. I had somebody from the dental school call me, like, how can we use some of this technology? And I don't know the answer to that yet, but I'm really excited about, where it might go.
Wow, this sounds really cross and interdisciplinary work. So how do you see the professional career of your students developing in this complex world?
Feeling lost in the noise of social media? Inspo cuts through the clutter, connecting you directly with real insights from real experts and industry leaders. It's a new social network dedicated to knowledge sharing, industry insights, and thought leadership. Get the latest from top minds in your field, or build your own thought leadership portfolio on Inspo. Already trusted by thousands of professionals worldwide, be part of the conversation and download Inspo Experts today on the App Store or visit www.inspo.expert.
Yeah, I think I always talk about it as we're preparing them for the long term and not necessarily for just to get a job as a graphic designer, because I think a lot of graphic design can be, it becomes a commodity of like, okay, do you know Figma? Like, a lot of people still ask me that, like, what software do you use? And I always say whatever software is needed for the project, whatever is needed at the time. But
exactly.
What is the problem you're trying to solve, or what's the curiosity that you're chasing after, and how can we figure out how to develop that? I'm not an expert in the endless amounts of software and code that are out there, but I know enough to sort of get us to a place that we can start developing it. We talk a lot about it as like this sort of T structure, and I don't think generalist is a great word, but like if you can sort of float across the top of the T and then decide like, oh, okay, this would be interesting, and then you can take a deeper dive into that area. That's essentially how I got involved in computer vision from the start. It wasn't, someone didn't say, okay, we're going to do a computer vision project, and here's the history of computer vision and to today, and this is the perfect way of doing computer vision and motion tracking. It started from, honestly, like a fever dream where I had a vision of a poster moving on a wall. And so I was like, okay, how can I make that a reality? And, it started with, what can I do? What tools can I use? So it's like photography. I'm going to take pictures of people's faces. I can do simple animations of loops. I can make something interactive on the web. And then it evolved into a projection where, the faces were moving based on a web camera. So I say the same things to the students, like, what is it that you're interested in doing? Where are your curiosities? Or, what is the problem that you have that we're trying to solve? And the same goes for the graphic design classes, as well as the more engineering classes in the Center for Data Science. We never want to call that Spark class like an app development class or anything like that, because it's really about what the problem is. And it could be a software thing. It could be a hardware thing. We'd be fine if it was a print generated thing. It's just a matter of like trying to figure that out. So I think if you can first get students that are really curious about things, they want to know how things work. So they're willing to sort of like put their own research into it to figure a lot of things out, allow for feedback, allow for guidance, and then also just adaptability and evolution. I think that's really the most important thing about, becoming a graphic designer in the professional world. As complex as the world might be, I just see it as more opportunity for more designers and to do, more interesting work. The more complex things are, the more opportunity there is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Are you finding that there are any limitations in your teaching and learning process?
I mean, it might be really naive to say, but I don't feel that way. I've had great experience at BU with the interdisciplinary work from day one, working with Clay in the School of Theater, working with the Center for Data Science with Zeba Cranmer, who's I co-teach the class with her at Spark, working with the Cross College Challenge, which I was the chair of last year, seeing how all faculty from across the school are really interested in working together. I mean, there's always challenges, right? It's mostly financial. It's like, how are you able to make these things happen? So it's not just an idea, but how do you execute on it? So you have to figure those things out too. And again, it's like, it's a juggling act. That's what design is, though, right? It's just as much creative as it is like navigating the different groups and the people and the politics and the finances. It's all part of the design challenge.
Absolutely. But is there anything that you'd like to do more, and you're finding yourself that, okay, if it was an ideal situation, if I could do anything, would you do anything more?
Sure. I think with so many things going on, I feel like sometimes I am fractured. I'm like pulled in too many directions. I'm really excited about the opportunity that generative AI plays a role. And again, I am excited to jump headfirst into that space, and sort of have been. And I think that where I really see it exciting is, sure, it's not producing it's not producing masterpieces. And I don't think that's the role of it. The same with the writing. Like, it's not, sure, it can give you like Shakespeare to a certain extent. It can give you some replica of a Van Gogh, or it can make some surreal imagery. But the idea is like, it's breaking down the barriers of that technology. So there's not this camp of technologists who are doing their work and the designers, coming up with great ideas and wishing they were possible. So I would love to see how we can sit in a room and talk about ideas and then more quickly and easily execute them. So that's my sort of dream for AI, for generative AI, is like, how can we make it a little bit more, less scary and a little bit more conversational? And so like you and I could talk about, oh, we have this idea for this and that. Like, let's figure out how to execute this, and like, let's figure out a process for it. Let's also figure out, the roadblocks that are going to come up, and how do we navigate those things. So I don't know if that's something that I'm not doing, but it's something that I'm excited to pursue a little bit more. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I would like to do. I don't know. I feel like if there's something I'm not doing, it's honestly, it's my own fault. Like, I need to figure out how to do it, because I feel like the opportunity's there for me. I just haven't investigated it enough.
Do you think, though, there's going to be a time where AI will be creating masterpieces?
No. I think that I think creative people will figure out new directions to go because of AI, not with AI necessarily. I think it's like any technology. It's going to fracture into so many different areas that we haven't seen yet, which I'm excited about. I think the concern with AI is that it's going to create a masterpiece, or it's going to overtake, when I think it's just like, how do we adapt and evolve with it, and not just let it do the work for us? Because I think we can learn from it. We created AI, right? Like, we are able to it's not like a controlling thing. It's just like, oh, it's a new way of experiencing the world. And I think that's an opportunity.
Oh, that's wonderful. How can our viewers and listeners find you?
Sure. I have a website for my teaching. It's called profgrady.com. They can also look at my professional work at Design Axl, axl.design. And I'm on Instagram, and I have some videos on Vimeo, and you can just reach out to me. I'm very accessible. My email addresses are on there. So I look forward to hearing from you.
Excellent. And what advice would you like to leave us with?
I guess I'll repeat some of the things that I was saying before, but, stay curious, stay positive, and don't let other people's challenges get in the way of your vision for creativity. And ultimately, try to make something new, make something that we've never seen before. That's the real role as an artist and a designer, to create something unique. So please do that. Good luck.
Wonderful. Well, James, thank you so much for coming, and keep in touch with the podcast. It's fantastic to continue the conversation.
Thank you. Thanks.